So happy to be joined today by Caitlin from Nebraskans for Palestine, which is a grassroots organization, advocacy using nonviolence, political pressure, community education, and cultural preservation to advance the liberation of Palestine from the Heartland. Caitlin Finn is a Nebraska organizer with experience organizing in the criminal justice and prison advocacy field and has been directly involved with NFP since October 2023. So, Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We were just talking about the story of the famine in Palestine, of the Bang the Pots protest, and sort of the recent shift in political opinion globally as it relates to the famine in particular. We know the flotilla has been attacked and that the people on it have been arrested. And I would love to hear just like how Nebraskans for Palestine is raising awareness and engaging people in action from the heartland to help support people in Palestine. And we'd also love to know what other listeners and viewers of this show may be able to do to help, and I just want to qualify that with like the thing feels so enormous and so atrocious that it's almost like it feels hopeless from the outside to be able to help. I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, if I donate money to aid, is that aid even going to end up in the hands of Palestinians? Like, how can I actually do anything here? So, would love to hear your takes on this and what you guys are doing in Nebraska.
Yes, thank you for this question. I think that all acts, small or large, are important. And I think us in the Midwest, especially in primarily red states, we feel that very intensely. This idea of anything that we do is not going to make a difference, but that is simply untrue.
Yeah.
Everything that we do, even if it doesn't have a political turning point, is reaching people on the ground in Palestine, in Gaza, and giving them pieces of hope and letting them know that people are there fighting for them, and that we won't let them do this alone,
Yeah.
and that we're going to do everything that we can to stop it. So Nebraskans for Palestine hosts regular public actions via protests, community education events, ways that people can apply political pressure to our elected officials, which are primarily Republican. Right now, we have activated a hunger strike out of Omaha, Nebraska. Um, that strike right now is comprised of 19 participants, myself included, and is being participated in various ways. So some people are doing full abstention from food and consuming only water. Some people are only consuming diets that mimic the caloric intake of people in Gaza, so anywhere between 250 and then on the high end, 1,000 calories. Most people
Mm.
staying around the 500 who are participating in that way. And we're doing this for public awareness. We're also doing this as a fundraising effort. So we have a fundraising goal of $10,000 for community kitchens and mutual aid organizations in Gaza that we know are still operating in some capacity, and that information is backed by the Humanity Project, who recently put out a report of who's still operating. So
Yeah.
that is what we're doing right now. And the most immediate way that people can get involved is donations. If people are local, we're also asking for political pressure and asking our local representatives to co-sponsor HR 3565, the Block the Bombs Act. Um, when one of those two is met, either the co-sponsorship from our Republican representatives, congressional representatives, or we meet our $10,000 fundraising goal, that is when we will break the strike as it is right now and recruit.
That's amazing. Do you find that, engaging in a hunger strike just generates more awareness than other forms of action? Is it Is it particularly useful at generating, say, enough headline and journalism attention to be able to drive forward the pressure that you need for a Republican lawmaker to choose to do something like this?
Hmm. That's interesting. I think time will tell, and we'll see
Yeah.
how the rest of the week goes. Of course, it's much harder to ignore a loud public action like a protest or a march that we are engaging in versus something that's more easy to be ignored. Um, I was chatting with one of the other strikers this morning about the way in which it's almost this strange layer to the experience of participating in a strike of the people that I'm working alongside or engaging with in my day-to-day life who maybe haven't shown up in really radical ways or who haven't directly participated in the liberation of Palestine or who haven't paid attention. It almost feels now when you do go on a strike and you feel internally this very acute um, sensation and multiple sensations. And it is an emotional experience. And that is something that you feel and is connected to the people that you're advocating for.
Mm,
And it is not felt by the person that's sitting across from you, right? It's not felt by the people that are in the grocery store that you're at work with. Your children and family. And so it does feel like something that is easy to ignore. And our goal is to make it unavoidable. So we're participating in daily meetups outside of our mayoral office and city council office in the mornings, and our local congressional representative, Don Bacon's office in the afternoons.
are you finding other cities that are doing this hunger strike in solidarity with you? And the follow-up question I have to that is like you're facing an uphill battle, right? You're trying to flip Republican lawmakers to support a bill that will, make some major changes that seem off platform for them, right? We just saw recently Trump make some statements even that something needs to be done about the famine in Palestine. So what do you think is happening here with the sentiment on the Republican lawmaker side? And like, have you seen a shift in locally in Nebraska or on the tail end of Trump's statement? Like sometimes he tends to wag the dog a bit when it comes to what the Republicans say and do. So are you seeing a shift there in how Republicans are starting to engage with the story? And if so, where do you attribute that?
Not yet. And I don't know that we will.
Yeah.
And organizing within the Heartland and within red states is vastly different than organizing in blue states and more progressive places. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to apply that pressure and take. We had the majority of our state senators 2 years in a row sign a public resolution in support of Israel. I think there were 12 of our 49 state senators who abstained from signing
Yeah.
that. We expect them to do that again this October. Um, our congressional representative here out of Omaha just last week publicly, when confronted, said, "I love Israel," with a smirk on his face. We don't think that there's going to be this huge shift. However, we do see the shift in the public narrative here in Omaha. Um, and the reality is people move out of those positions.
Yeah.
And we have to keep Palestine on the mouths of politicians in Nebraska because those seats come up for reelection all the time. For example, the person that we are asking to co-sponsor this Block the Bombs Act is retiring, and there's multiple people who have put their hat in for his seat in the 2026 election. And so part of this pressure is also to make sure that they remember that this is an issue that Nebraskans care about.
I want to kind of circle back on something you were saying about the difficulty of organizing in a red state as opposed to a blue state? And for all of our two listeners out there, we just started this. I mean, what are we talking about? I've been a blue state person all my life. I now live in Canada. I'm back in Canada, originally Canadian. But what is that? What do you think that experience is for a lot of people who are in red states who want to organize? What are your key frustrations?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the key frustrations are a lot of things. Mostly it's lacking the numbers in participation, um, both within the progressive spaces and the ones that are more conservative. Um, and for some context, Nebraska is a red state. We have two big cities, Omaha, and then our capital, Lincoln. Omaha nationally is considered the blue
Yeah.
Democratic city in the whole state of Nebraska, and the rest of it is rural. It's mostly agriculture, farmlands, and very conservative values. So, in that regard alone, it is challenging to uplift a progressive, right, message in a sea of red with people who, number one, don't want to hear it, and number two, feel entitled to a mm, verbal violence in suppressing that message, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so there's that, and with that then comes the fear of activation, the fear of engagement, meaning people who do share your values have a harder time stepping into those spaces of action. So it means we have smaller protests than you would see in other blue cities and blue states. It means that we have a much more difficult time trying to pass any sort of um, resolutions from a city level or state level or any sort of BDS legislature, um, things like that. So on on multiple fronts, it is just more challenging to um, yeah, step into those spaces, I think.
How do people find one another? Let's put it that way. Is it on social media? Is that how you sort of gather your numbers as best you can?
It is mostly on social media, um, which we have a pretty decent organic following. And then the other way is being consistent uh, in our public appearance. So we have a biweekly every other Wednesday. For the first year, it was every Wednesday protest that happens at a really public intersection, and people expect us to be there. They're used to seeing us there. And then we also host weekend marches in another very popular part of town as well, in addition to trying to put stickers all over town and signs up where we can
Yeah.
and compiling supportive lists of supportive businesses who are coming around us. So a lot of it is on social media and a lot of it is just boots on the ground in our community.
It's a hard struggle doing this work in a red state. I come from Texas, so I can empathize a bit, even though Texas did have a sort of blue history at some point, and everyone talks about it flipping blue someday, as if that's going to happen soon. Maybe it will, but you feel like the people who are really organizing in these states are in the struggle because it takes a different kind of makeup. It's more long term, I think, less fair weather, right, to be able to actually get some change there. So Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. I know you mentioned earlier one of the ways people can help, which was to donate funds to Nebraskans for Palestine. How can they do that? Where can they find you? And are there any other places that you would suggest they look to get active, whether they're in Nebraska or just want to support?
People can also text Gaza is starving with no spaces to 44321. That will also get them to the donation page. And then as far as involvement, people can follow us on social media at Nebraskans for Palestine on Instagram and TikTok. And then getting involved offline, if you see us, just please stop. Just stop, say hello. And if you're not in Nebraska, to be honest, There are a lot more organizers in red states than you would think. So there's a couple of organizations in our neighbor, Iowa. There's a small group in South Dakota, and then down south in Missouri and Kansas. So Google your state plus Palestine and see what comes up.
Fantastic. Caitlin, great information. Thank you so much. Good luck on the hunger strike. Good luck on the bill. We'll be rooting for you from here, and we'll make sure to drop all the links so people can find you guys and support along the way.
Excellent. Thank you all so much, and I will talk with you later.